The floorboards creak at nothing, and he waits, and soon the walls follow. If Thomas stands still enough, he can feel the water beneath his feet, small, undulating waves caused by little more than unfortunate fish who have wandered too far into the dead space. But it is noticeable enough. Any movement is, after all this time. For 2 weeks, the ship has sat still, so long that Thomas had lost track of the days, until one night, leaning out the window for air, he was met by the scent of salt water and vomit, the moon above him a half-cut coin, and diabolically bright that far north. The sky had been empty when the ship pulled into the harbor, dark when the guards stopped them. So dark there was no light to see other than their lanterns hurrying down the docks. Since then, men have stood by with their muskets and their uniforms, watching from a distance as the crew began to rot, their fingers tense and waiting for the order to come so they could set them all ablaze and be done with it. Their time, however, is up. No one new has died. The only pallid faces on board have been from the limited food and the growing stench of the cloth-wrapped corpses down below. And the moon tells Thomas that freedom is near, so he walks to the end of the small wooden hall, to the door of his employer, and at long last allows himself to knock. It is there, with the door half open, that he finds Benedict's withered body on the floor, surrounded by a circle of salt. His eyes are open, and the flesh around his mouth is dark from the putrefying blood. His robes are stained from at least a day's worth of decay, and for Thomas, two things come to his mind faster than anything else: that his employer is dead, and that there is a book in his hand. In that moment, the candles around him do not matter, nor how the air is thick with incense and something else he cannot place, something beyond the stench. All he knows is that the ship has gained another body, and Thomas will not stand by and watch another thing rot. He will not rot. Benedict was not a young man, but he was not old enough to have died so suddenly of age. The state of his health 2 days before told Thomas that the cause of his current condition could not have been illness or disease. That much he was sure of. Instead, staring down at the mess of scattered herbs, salt, and flesh, he thinks of when the man found him, wandering the rain-soaked docks, penniless and desperate for fish scraps. How when he asked the young, starving Thomas to leave Strassland and join him, Thomas did not ask questions. Benedict wanted to keep him, and he did not have enough money to say no. He still does not have money if Benedict is dead. Perhaps this is why he picks up the book at all, why Thomas kneels down and grasps it away from poor Benedict's hand like a keepsake he is owed. As he works, Thomas listens to the tug of the unyielding sinew, cautious not to let it break, so cautious and so focused that a sharp ringing fills his ears from the silence and makes him nearly double over from the absence all around him. The book is a simple binding of leather scraps, repurposed and stained from an unknown former life, its vellum pages uneven and marked with a multitude of inks. Nothing, Thomas thinks, like the books that they traded to the universities, with their gold-stamped leather covers and crisp printed pages. This is not the kind of book Benedict would have ever agreed to sell, nor the kind he ever asked of Thomas to fetch in all the loathsome years spent as an errand boy. It is not a proper book. It does not contain stories or law codes or sermons, and the hand which wrote it, Thomas can tell, was messy and not properly trained. Strange images mark the pages, crosses and circles and curved intersecting lines with titles written in letters that to his mind hold no natural origin. On the inside, however, is a receipt, and that Thomas can read. Delivered to Father Johannes, Lund Cathedral School, 20 Riksdaler. There is a creak at the end of the boat, a series of voices carrying over the dead wind, and as he crumples the paper in his palm, Thomas realizes that there is no time. The guards have come. Their boots are on the ship. At that sound and each echoing step, Thomas's mind begins to race so strongly that he forgets how to swallow. There is a body, he realizes again with a flash of fire behind his eyes. No, he reminds himself, there is not just a body, there is a new body, and that is even worse. As Thomas looks around, his heart pounds against his ribs. He needs to find something, anything to hide him. Benedict, no, he tells himself, not Benedict, the corpse. He is just a corpse now. His eyes have only just wandered past the baseboards and the few pieces of furniture in the room when in the corner he sees the old man's travel chest. Not a large one, but large enough that it feels like safety. With haste, Thomas rushes across the floor, smearing the circle of darkened salt on the sea-aged boards with his feet until he is close enough to throw open the lid. Only when the hinges creak, he finds that it is not empty. Inside are the nice clothes made of materials won over the years from carrying the rare favor of merchants, the kind he knows Benedict will not be needing anymore. It is a soft lump of black velvet and linens, and without sparing them another thought, Thomas grabs them and throws them on the floor before hurrying back to grab the body. It is heavier than it looks, rigid and bloated in the belly, but he has no other choice. He has to make do. As the footsteps of the guards draw near, Thomas slides the husk of his employer across the floor and hoists it into the chest, only to find that it won't bend, and so he forces it, hears a snap, and tries not to let his stomach turn. The guards arrive with Thomas's sweaty fingers clasped around the soft binding of the old book and the receipt shoved deep into his pocket. The walls of the ship seem to creak in warning, and all Thomas can do is tighten his fingers and will his body not to shake. "You there, what is this?" the first guard shouts. "Why are you not on deck with your papers?" Thomas fights to find the words in Swedish that he knows he can speak. Instead, his mind runs blank. "I was just coming down to get my things." "You have no things. Your goods have been confiscated under orders of the crown. Everything has to stay on the ship." "You should be grateful we're letting scum like you disembark at all," the second guard adds. Cautiously, Thomas moves the book out of sight. It is small enough to slip below his shirt, but as the guards stare him down, a palpable disgust begins to grow in the air and fester between them. Without warning, the second guard grabs him by his collar, taking the fabric of his shirt into his calloused hands as if he were a kitten. When he throws Thomas to the side, his feet are left stumbling to regain their footing. "You should be burning here with the rest of them," the guard says. "But you're lucky. It's a Sunday and the bishop is more merciful than I would have been." There is a curl to the guard's lip as he speaks, and in his mustache are bits of meat and crumbs that speak of a proper dinner. They hint of a celebration at a pub, no doubt just before they wander joyously down the docks to burn the immigrants and tradesmen to a crisp. Despite everything, the sight of it makes Thomas's stomach grumble. "I'm sorry," Thomas tries again, bracing himself against the wall of the ship, feeling the hungry weight of his starvation. "I'll go to the deck now." As he takes a step toward the door, another hand reaches out to press firmly against his chest. "Then again," the first guard continues, as if Thomas's words had not been heard, "the bishop ain't here." Behind him, Thomas knows the lid of the chest is not sealed. The shadowy crack is still large enough for the stench of Benedict's body to reach the guards if they linger any longer in the small room. If they stay too long, they'll surely notice the smeared salt and the ash and grow curious in a way even Thomas isn't confident he can explain. Saliva sticks in his throat as he tries to swallow. Then, Thomas steadies the book against the waist of his pants and runs. The skin under his eye has blossomed purple by the time it opens, and Thomas finds himself alone in the stench of the docks, his muscles sore and ribs aching from the guardsman's boots. With frantic hands, he feels the saltwater slick cobblestones until they land on the familiarity of the leather binding, and he pulls the book close to him like a lifeboat. Plumes of smoke rise into the air over the ink-black waters of the port, enveloping the stars as the warm light of the blazing ship flickers onto his cheeks. He knows that somewhere among the fire, Benedict's body is turning to ash, blending with the salt he left on the floorboards. It is not the kind of burial a man like Benedict deserved, nor is it anything close to the kind he would have planned for. And a part of Thomas thinks of the savings Benedict has back in Germany, the money that would have bought him a nice plot of land near the church and eulogies by every minister in Northern Europe. It doesn't matter now. The gold coins and banknotes will lay untouched in his house until someone bothers to pilfer the place. Thomas wonders for a fleeting second if he could be that someone, but the idea is smothered before it can catch. He is stranded. Winter is coming, and the only ports that remained open through the wars are shutting down to stop the plague and whatever else they do not want to welcome. No one will be leaving for months. No one with a merciful heart will be coming in either. Nausea rolls through him, creeping up the back of his throat as the emptiness of his body threatens to eat away at itself. That, or the throbbing in his head, is to blame. He raises his weak arm shakily to steady himself on the cobblestones, and with dirt beneath his nails, Thomas brushes the rancid hair from his boyish face. Around him there is nothing but a dip in the stone for fish guts and waste to run off, and withered wooden shacks where fishermen steady their legs and warm their bones. The spoiled state of a market day debris tells him that it is Monday now, at least, maybe Tuesday, though the thought of lying there unconscious for 2 days is as unappealing as a smell on his clothes. It is too familiar a sight to be comforting, and too familiar a situation for Thomas to accept. And so, with whatever energy he can pull from himself, the palms of his hands dig into the stone, and Thomas forces himself to stand.